Hello everyone, and welcome to another top 5 records video. Have you ever wondered if a certain record should be listened to in stereo or mono? Well, I assume you have, because I've made some videos in which I have been comparing a stereo pressing to a mono pressing, and I think it's always interesting to find out what is the right way or the preferred way for an album to listen to an album. And sometimes the artists have a very clear idea about what is the finished product. You can see that, for example, with Blonde on Blonde, the mono mix was the one Bob Dylan was involved in. The Beatles also made some statements in the early days of mono, but there are situations in which it's vague, and the difference can be immense. For example, 2 years ago, when I was in London, by coincidence, I found a first UK mono pressing of Fresh Cream, and I've always thought that Cream was an interesting band, but trying to getting them to sound, nice, perhaps dirty or full sounding. The way getting them to sound the way you want the blues rock to sound can sometimes be tough. I've had a lot of problems with certain digital versions, and then when I got that first mono pressing, a Fresh Cream, and I put my mono needle in there, it was just stunning. It blew me away, and I immediately started to really love that album. So, about a week or two ago, I was in London again, and I found a first UK mono of another Cream album, Wheels of Fire. And I think Wheels of Fire is a very fascinating album. I really love the artwork. It has a awesome presentation, but I like the concept as well. There's a studio album here, and there's a live album. The live album was recorded at Fillmore East, I believe, and the live album has some of the most beautiful and interesting covers there. For example, Crossroads, Spoonfull, Born Under a Bad Sign, which is, it's really a beautiful nod to the classic blues guys. I'm wearing a John Lee Hooker shirt, so. But their studio album is also pretty good. Opening with White Room. That song alone, the entire studio album is good. You have Politician, you have Sitting on Top of the World. It's good. It's a good record. Now, but the first time I bought this album was in a Canadian pressing, a first Canadian pressing, which sounded like crap. So I've been looking for a good pressing, and I found this first UK mono in a shop in London. But right before I found this one, in Amsterdam, I found a first UK stereo. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to compare these two records. What should be the preferred version? And I expected a situation like Fresh Cream, but it did not work out quite that way. I started off listening to the stereo. This is the stereo. I started listening to the stereo UK one with the studio album, and this is the best way I've heard the album so far. The way the vocals, the way the voice sounds, it is beautiful, detailed, and there's so much going on. I really love the sound of the voice in a stereo. I love the overall mix. For example, the doo doo doo, and when the drums hit in, the combination of sounds overall in this stereo mix. Not only the way the air adds to the instruments, but also the placing in the room and the bombast it creates. It's so more grand. It's so much more fuller. It's really awesome. When you compare that to the mono one, you do not have that bombast, the fullness. On the mono one, you do have. I'm slightly more a fan of the way the vocal sounds on the mono one. It sounds a little bit deeper, though this is already a very good representation of the voice. The mix on this one is so much better. Now I started to look online, and the answer is pretty simple. The mono is a fold down. Yeah. Disraeli gears and fresh creams have unique mono mixes. This one does not, and that is the overall thing you will hear in between these albums. Yet there is something that really bothers me. Listening to these pressings, though this is the best way I've ever heard the album, I'm still a bit sad by the way the guitar and the bass is mixed there. This is mostly a representation of drums and vocals. And that doesn't quite do the trick for me. Well, you hear the guitar with the. There's a difference between the mixing of the rhythm guitar and the voice box. You know, I'm not sure how you call it. Is it the voice box? But it's the way when a tube, the voice tube. You know, that sounds obviously louder on both mixes. Yeah, it's basically the same mix, but this is fold down. But the bass and the rhythm guitar in the studio version are not that present. Now, the balance is better on the live versions. Better balance, but yet again, the stereo one sounds better. I have the idea that there is more detail somehow in the stereo one live, and I think that's gotta do with the fact that Clapton's guitar needs air to live in. And that makes the stereo version so much more better, so much more lively. Yet though the balance is better between vocals, drums, and the guitar and bass there, it's still not as sparkling as I hoped. This is to me a completely different experience than Fresh Cream. So if you would like my advice on which one of the two is better, I'd say go for the stereo. The stereo is livelier. This album, both in the live version as in the studio version, have good ideas about stereo. Why stereo is necessary. For a certain air, for a more dynamic left-right experience. The way it's written and recorded, the way it's mixed. This one needs to be listened to in stereo. So that is my take on the stereo and mono versions of Wheels of Fire by Cream. I'm curious, do you agree? Do you disagree? Leave a comment below and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!